Senator, welcome back. Did you heard when Pete Buttigieg said that? Is that just a guy saying, elect me, not Bernie? Or do you think he's got some legitimate fears there?
No, I think he's probably right about that. I mean, listen, Bernie would be a disaster for the Democrat Party, and it just shows you how far left the activist core of that party has gone. A socialist who wants to remake this country in the image of Cuba and China. I mean, can you believe the things he's saying about Cuba and China? He talked about China being a model for lifting people out of poverty. I mean, really? The most authoritarian government on the face of the planet, a model? I don't think so.
Yeah, tell that to the people of China who are desperately trying to survive today and are living without any freedoms. Senator Marco Rubio called him, he's really a Marxist. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, if you praise Cuba and you praise China, I don't know how there's any other conclusion. I mean, this is a guy who clearly has a taste for authoritarian governments, who thinks that the United States needs to look more like these authoritarian regimes. I mean, that just isn't America. And I think that when people listen to this, already the other Democrats know that Bernie would be a disaster at the top of the ticket. And I can tell you from conversations I've had with Democrats on Capitol Hill, they are terrified at the idea of Bernie as being their standard bearer. But listen, I think it's going to happen, and that's why Donald Trump is going to win big in November.
Senator, let's talk to you about the coronavirus, because yesterday I know y'all met as a group. You got some classified information. President earmarked, what was it, $2.5 billion to go toward finding this vaccine. He said yesterday in the press conference y'all are close to a vaccine. Can you tell us more?
Well, I think that there are potential vaccines under development, which is outstanding. Now, these things can take months to test, but I know that there's at least, I believe, 2 that are underway in the testing process, which is great. And the CDC has put an all-hands-on-deck effort together. Here's what I think needs to happen. I'm introducing legislation today that will help bring our medical supply chains back out of China here to the United States. My big concern is when it comes to our vaccines and our antibiotics, too many of them are in China. This has happened over decades. Other administrations have let those drugs go to China, let those supply chains go to China. We need to bring them home.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because it's not just the drugs, but it seems like every American industry now is having supply chain problems because we rely so heavily on the cheap labor in China. What other things did they tell you yesterday, Senator, that people need to know? Because when we heard the news that it's not a question of if, but when it's going to get here, that freaked a lot of people out.
Well, you know, listen, we're seeing the virus spread into other places. Japan, South Korea both now have very significant numbers of cases, Italy as well. So it's getting harder to screen passengers who come into the United States. I called for travel restrictions over a month ago. The president was right to put travel restrictions in place from China. But the truth is it's going to get more difficult now as cases could be coming to us from all kinds of different countries. So listen, we're just going to have to step up our efforts. There's no need to panic. There is need to take every available precaution and every available step. I believe the administration will do that. I applaud the president's request for additional funding. We may need a lot more than $2.5 billion. If we do, then I'm sure that Congress will give it to him, and we're going to need an all-hands-on-deck effort. But I go back to, let's not get ourselves in a situation where we are dependent on the Chinese for our drugs, for our antibiotics. We need to take steps right now to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Would we be willing to pay more for those drugs for that to happen? We also know, too, when the fast food drugs retailers have shut down at Domino's, Starbucks, Pizza and Lululemon. Domino's Pizza and Lululemon have shut down in China. And here, places like John Deere last week said sales for road building equipment, which usually have been dropping 10 to 15%. So that's why our market's dropping. I mean, we're really feeling the hit there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this effect in China with so much of their manufacturing idling, with a lot of their economy shut down, that's really what is driving, I think, the market fears. And this goes back to the fact that the Communist Chinese Party did not take the steps necessary to protect their own people and to protect the world. They lied about this. They tried to keep it under wraps. They misled us. Even now, they won't really allow doctors in to China to figure out the extent of the pandemic there. So this is on them. It's an epic failure of leadership. Now we've got to take steps to protect our own people.
And that's one of the reasons the president will be addressing the nation tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Senator Hawley, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.